I am opening the 2783 meeting of our 100th session. I do have the honor to welcome the delegation of the Republic of Ireland, highly headed by His Excellency the Foreign Minister. It's not often that we do have a Foreign Minister to lead a delegation, but the Republic of Ireland honored the committee by sending here for these 2 days of work his Foreign Minister. Be thanked, Mr. Foreign Minister, for that. The state party of our convention is known, Ireland, as a country where the price of liberty, justice and freedom is very high. Ireland lost so many people for its independence. So if there is in the world a country, a people, for whom the words of justice and liberty and equality has a meaning, is Ireland. And I do have today also the opportunity to mention a woman, a very, very important woman for us in this committee, who happened to be the chairperson of this committee, Madame Anastasia Crickley. And I want you to applaud her for all her work. Anastasia, thank you for what you did for this committee and in the name of the committee. And even now you are not in it, you still carry on working as a militant for human rights, and in particular nowadays, language for minorities and minority women, and you still carry on working, traveling, because you are what always told you you were, an Iron Lady. Thank you, Anastasia. And in the name of the committee, for those who know you and for those who don't, thank you, madam. Now I would like to tell about our method of work as far as our work is to be organized for today and tomorrow. But before all, I would like just to tell the members of the delegation of Ireland that we are a law committee. We never do politics. Politics is not our game. We don't play this game. We are a law committee. We are impartial. We don't take part, but our only part is law. And the law is in the convention. In the convention we find what to say and what to write. And every word which would have been told here during these 2 days will be the only words which will be taken into consideration when we will have to write a concluding observation. Nothing else. And also, I would like to say that we don't say words here in this committee with allegations. Information, yes. Allegations, no. Because if we bring allegations in our way of thinking and telling things, we may go not towards our goal, which is find the truth as far as the racial discrimination is concerned and in human rights in general. And Ireland is one of these countries where when they are not afraid of words, because they have shown during all their life that they were done to go towards always justice, law, legality, and truth. This is what I wanted to say, Mr. Prime Minister, because I had to say so before getting in our work. First of all, I will give you the floor. I will give you the floor, Mr. Prime Minister, for perhaps 50 minutes or 45 minutes. And after you take the floor, the representative of the National
Human Rights Institution.
Sorry?
National Human Rights Institution of Ireland.
Yeah, the Institution of Human Rights is going to take also the floor. Then our rapporteur will take the floor and tell us about what was the facts as she has got from reading your report. And Mr. Coote, who is the rapporteur for the follow-up, will take the floor as well. He will tell us about how Ireland did follow up the road of human rights and racial discrimination since a couple years and years and years ago. We will have an idea of how Ireland did go towards what it is today. And then the other members of our committee will take the floor also. They will give us their opinion on the matter because they have read your report completely. So when they will take the floor, they will tell us about what has not been told by the rapporteur. Because the other experts are not the rapporteur. There's one rapporteur. And what would have not been said by her will be said by the other experts of our committee. Then if we finish before 6, and perhaps you would say a word on, any answer to give to questions which have been brought to us, you're welcome. If not, we will have tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, then we will have to bring the answers to all the questions which have been brought by the rapporteur and the other members of our committee. When after, you will have perhaps 1.5 hours, I think, and we will then have what we call here a dialogue, an interactive dialogue. What is it? An interactive dialogue is a dialogue between members of our committee and your delegation to see questions answered directly. And with this, we would have done the best we can to make sure that there is, between the delegation of yours and the members of our committee, something which is understood. And I hope that with this way of doing, we will get a goal which is come a conclusion before 1 o'clock. And before 1 o'clock, I will give the floor, Mr. Head of the delegation, though I know that perhaps you won't be here for a professional reason, for imperative reason. But I am sure your deputy will take your seat and will do the way you would have done yourself. in this mission of yours. Now, I do believe that I did say enough, but it was very important for me to say to the delegation the way we are going to work during these 2 days. Mr. Head of the delegation, if you want me to finish, I would like just perhaps to know a couple of names of the delegation of yours, if you want so, but if not, it is not necessary. So, Mr. Prime Minister, you have the floor. Please, go ahead.
Is this turn on?
Yeah.
Is it on?
That's it, Chair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And could I first of all agree with you with respect to our Iron Lady, Anastasia, and thank you on her behalf for your comments. She really is a national treasure in some ways in this area. So I want to thank you for your comments. I also want to compliment you on your green tie. You're putting us all to shame. So that's a good start anyway. It's not St. Patrick's Day, but I think we do recognise, and you alluded to it yourself, Mr. Chairman, the fact that Irish people have travelled all over the world, and in the past, many millions of Irish people have lost their lives through famine and immigration, and we remember those people today as well. Mr. Chairman, today's session is a very important one for Ireland. I propose to use this opening statement to set out the actions taken by Ireland to promote integration and to combat racism and racial discrimination. I am joined today by the Deputy Secretary General Una Buckley of the Department of Justice and Equality, who will lead a delegation tomorrow, as unfortunately I have to return to Ireland to attend to urgent parliamentary business. And I must apologise for that, but it's outside my control. I'm also joined by Ambassador Michael Gaffey here, Jen MacDonald, Deputy Permanent Representative, Mr. John Hurley, Mr. Mac Wilson, Ms. Kieran Carberry, Mr. Killian Delaney, Ms. Yvonne Phillips and Ms. Sarah Mungy of the Department of Justice and Equality, Ms. Martina Feeney and Ms. Kaya Hild of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Ms. Mary Craig of the Department of Education and Skills, and Mr. Neville Kenny, who joins the delegation tomorrow. Ms. Rosemary Tobin of the Department of Housing, Planning and Local Government, and Ms. Caroline Timmins, who joins the delegation tomorrow. Mr. Hugh Cronin of the Department of Employment Affairs and Social Protection, Ms. Darko Neal of the Department of Health, Mr. Paul Geraghty of the Department of Rural and Community Development, and Superintendent Kevin Daly of our Police Service and Garda Síochána. We take very seriously our UN obligations. Our membership of the UN has played a major part in our development. We not only support a fair, rules-based order in international affairs, we exist, survive and prosper because of it. In peacekeeping, disarmament and sustainable development, climate, nutrition, human rights and humanitarian assistance, we have striven to match our words with actions and funding, supporting multilateral structures. We strongly support the work being done by the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination to put a spotlight on the crucial effort needed to create a world where all can enjoy opportunities free of discrimination on the basis of race, ethnicity or nationality. We are proud that an Irish woman, as I say, Anastasia, so recently chaired the committee. Diversity and inclusion are important for Ireland. Over the past 2 decades or more, Ireland has welcomed migrants from across the world. The latest integration monitor published in November 2018 by the Economic and Social Research Institute confirms the diversity of Ireland's population. 17% of our population has been born outside of Ireland. Many have been given the opportunity to acquire Irish citizenship. Ireland is one of 13 EU member states that provides citizenship if the person has been resident for 5 years, and one of 16 EU member states permitting dual citizenship. Approximately 120,000 people have received Irish citizenship since 2011. So more than 2.5% of the total population in Ireland are new citizens. Since Ireland last reported to the committee in 2011, Mr. Chairman, there have been landmark developments in the recognition of the rights of ethnic minorities. Citizenship ceremonies were first introduced in 2011 to mark the occasion of the granting of citizenship to persons born outside Ireland. The ceremonies constitute a public recognition by the state and by the government of the commitment being made to Ireland by new citizens. Since they were first introduced, a total of 141 citizenship ceremonies have been held, involving people born in over 180 countries. I have presided at a number of those ceremonies, and they are absolutely amazing. The joy, the happiness, the emotion that is evident when people are recognised by the state, when you have ceremonial music being played, when you have a judge administering the oath. It's just amazing to see people laughing and crying and are so happy when it's done in that very formal way. Recognition of rights, however, has not been limited to those born outside of Ireland. On the 1st of March 2017, the then Taoiseach, our Prime Minister, Enda Kenny TD, made a statement in Dáil Éireann, that's our Parliament, recognising members of the travelling community as an ethnic minority. I personally worked for years, sat as Chair of the Parliamentary Justice Committee and then as Minister to secure the recognition of travellers as an ethnic minority. In the course of this work, I informed politicians across the political spectrum of the importance of this recognition. The event in Dáil Éireann was, as I said, truly memorable, with all political parties united in support of the Taoiseach statement. Recognitions of traveller ethnicity has been a symbolic step forward in the state's acknowledgement of the uniqueness of traveller identity and culture, and is intended to generate mutual understanding and respect between traveller and non-traveller communities. Recognition of travellers as an ethnic minority will not remove overnight all of the obstacles that have prevented them from experiencing full equality within Irish society. However, it has created a strong platform of respectful dialogue and pathway towards equality for travellers. It demonstrates the commitment of Government and Parliament towards recognising the contribution that travellers have made to Irish society and culture and removing the barriers that have limited their opportunities. Over this period, the Irish Government has worked actively to strengthen rights in key areas such as education. Legislation has been enacted to ensure that children, whatever their religion or whatever their religion or none, have equal access to primary education. The Education Admissions to School Act 2018 was put into law in July 2018. It removes the existing provision in the Equal Status Act 2000, which permitted primary schools to use religion as a selection criteria in school admissions. The reform ensures that non-denominational families will be treated the same as other families in primary school admissions to the majority of primary schools. A corresponding protection has been included in relation to the remaining primary schools to ensure that a child of a minority faith can still access a school of his or her faith. This important reform will help to ensure that all children, regardless of religion or none, are able to access education while continuing to protect the rights of those of minority faiths. Ireland has also undertaken legislative change in support of equality and human rights. The Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission Act 2014 introduced a new equality and human rights positive duty. Public bodies have a duty under Section 42 of the 2014 Act to have regard to the need to eliminate discrimination, to promote equality of opportunity and to protect the human rights of service users and of staff. Public bodies must set out in their statements of strategy how they intend to fulfil this duty. As such, the legislation provides structural underpinning for action by public bodies on equality, human rights and the combating of discrimination. These powers build on the foundation of our equality legislation, which prohibits discrimination on 9 equality grounds, including race, ethnicity and nationality. The Employment Equality Acts, which prohibit discrimination in employment, have been in place since 1998. The Equal Status Acts, which prohibit discrimination in areas of public and private services to goods and accommodation, were first introduced in 2000, in preparation for the ratification of CERD in December of that year. Ireland's rights infrastructure has been strengthened over the past 5 years. The Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission, IREC, was established in 2014 through the merging of the Equality Authority and the Irish Human Rights Commission. IREC is an independent public body that is accountable directly to the Irish Parliament rather than to the government. IREC's independence and powers have been recognised internationally. It holds an A status as an independent human rights body, conforms to the Paris Principles and is internationally recognised as a leading human rights and equality body. It has been given a range of powers to challenge discrimination and to seek legal redress for persons experiencing discrimination. One of its new functions under the 2014 Act is to encourage the development of a culture of respect for human rights, equality and intercultural understanding in the state. IREC's role of promoting intercultural understanding constitutes an additional mechanism, not only for promoting integration, but also for understanding the factors that can lead to discrimination against ethnic and racial minorities. The legal architecture governing employment cases has also been substantially reformed in the intervening period. The Workplace Relations Act 2015 provided the legal basis for the Workplace Relations Commission, which is the primary body to which complaints can be made by those who experience discrimination in employment or in access to goods and services. The Workplace Relations Commission provides information on employment rights and operates on inspections regime under which inspectors have the powers to inspect workplaces to ensure that employers are complying with employment rights legislation. Individual cases can be taken to the Workplace Relations Commission, and the 2015 Act simplified the procedures in this regard. 292 referrals were made to the Workplace Relations Commission in 2018 of cases alleging discrimination in access to goods and services on the race ground, while 124 referrals related to allegations of discrimination in access to goods and services on the traveller community ground. 213 referrals were made of cases alleging discrimination in employment on the race ground, and a further 6 cases in relation to employment on the traveller community ground. Over this period, the Irish Government has worked actively to improve opportunities for minorities. To ensure a whole of government approach to delivery, it has adopted a strategic approach to policy on migrants, travellers and Roma. We now have 5 such strategies to deliver inclusion for all in Irish society. I launched the LGBTI+ and inclusion strategy only last week. While all 5 are important overlap, I want to speak to 2 key strategies here today, which relate to the integration of migrants and inclusion of travellers and Roma. Firstly, the Migrant Integration Strategy, which runs from 2017 to 2020 and which I launched in February 2017, provides a framework for action to support migrant integration. It commits public bodies to take action on employment, education, access to public services, political participation and immigration. In fact, the Taoiseach, that's our Prime Minister, recently announced his support for the civil service to recruit more people from migrant communities, and that includes our police and defence forces. To that, I welcome the development of the Public Appointments Service Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Strategy. This requires all public bodies to mainstream integration issues into their work. It includes specific actions to tackle racism, from the review of hate speech legislation to requiring local authorities to remove racist graffiti and to ensure that there is migrant representation on joint policing committees. I chair the Strategy Committee, which meets quarterly to monitor the implementation of this strategy. Reflecting our commitment to the active inclusion of civil society in monitoring key initiatives, the Strategy Committee includes NGO representatives as well as representatives of government departments and agencies. The NGO representatives have a mandate to question public bodies and to press for more rapid implementation of key actions. They have an active voice in this process, a very, very important voice. I call the NGOs our critical friends. They're critical because they're important, and they're critical because they bring criticism to us to tell us how we can do things better. And that's hugely, hugely important. The mid-term review of the Migrant Integration Strategy coincided with the consultations for Ireland's report to CERD. The feedback given during the CERD consultation sessions fed into our overall assessment of progress thus far on the strategy. There was a strong message that further actions needed to be added to the strategy focused on combating racism. In response, the Government has committed to strengthening its approach to combating racism, building on the actions already being carried out within the strategy. An anti-racism committee is being established, and I am delighted to announce today that Professor Caroline Fennell of University College Cork and a Commissioner on the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission will chair this committee. That committee will have a mandate to review current evidence and practice and to make recommendations to government on how best to strengthen its approach to tackling racism. The committee will be a broad-based partnership of state and non-state actors, including employers and unions, religious and community groups and media organisations. Its purpose is to develop an understanding of the nature and prevalence of racism in Ireland and to work towards achieving a social consensus on actions required by the member organisations and others. The committee will convene early in the new year and will produce its initial report to government within 3 months. I am very much looking forward to the outcomes of this initiative. We are also working with our NGO partners and stakeholders representing Ireland's African communities to develop a programme of action to mark the International Decade for People of African Descent. In April of this year, I hosted a consultation event at the Department of Justice and Equality for our African communities and other stakeholders. We spoke about how best to leverage the opportunities represented by the decade to celebrate the contribution of peoples of African descent to Ireland's society and the economy, and to address the problems of discrimination and inclusion they still face. We are working with the steering committee established by the African descent stakeholder organisations to advance the decade in Ireland and have provided grant funding to support the development of a programme of action. The Government has also adopted a strategic approach to travel and Roma issues in its National Travel and Roma Inclusion Strategy. That's NITRIS, which runs from 2016 to 2021. And I launched that in June 2017. NITRIS is a whole-of-government strategy aimed at improving the lives of travel and Roma communities in Ireland. It was developed and is being implemented in a partnership approach with the travel and Roma organisations so that their concerns are considered when national policy is being developed and so that collaborative responses can be put in place to address the challenges which remain to be addressed. Travel and Roma representatives are directly involved in the process of developing solutions on key policy areas such as employment and education. The Employment Subcommittee, for instance, is chaired by a representative from a traveller organisation. NITRIS has focused in particular on education, recognising the linkage between education attainment and life opportunities. And I personally feel very, very strongly about that, young people in particular should have every opportunity to reach their potential through education. And I'm also quite interested in further education and lifelong education, so that older people can get an opportunity to go back to school, go back to education, develop new skills, and reach their potential as well. And only the other day before I came here, I had a meeting in University College Cork with the adult and continuing education section there. And I was briefed on the work they're doing with traveller women in particular who've gone back to education and actually act as an example to their children. Because when a child sees his mother or his father going back to education, they can see it's valued by their parents and will actually want to go back to stay in education themselves, which is their ultimate goal. So a 2-year pilot project has been established to target attendance, participation and school completion in specific traveller and Roma communities regionally. Partners in the project include TUSLA, that's the Child and Family Agency, Education Support Services, the Departments of Education and Skills, Justice and Equality, and Children and Youth Affairs, and traveller and Roma representative bodies and committees in pilot areas. 4 pilot areas, Galway, Dublin, Wexford and Cork, were identified using data on areas with large traveller and Roma populations and on school attendance rates of children from traveller and Roma communities. Each pilot has been provided with specialist staff who work together with parents, children and young people, their schools, the wider traveller and Roma communities and other service providers to remove the barriers affecting traveller and Roma children's attendance, participation and retention in education. The programme seeks to develop relationships with local traveller and Roma communities. It works with schools to identify and address in-school barriers to attendance and participation, and with parents to support their children's participation in school. It is supporting children and young people to make the transitions through all stages of the education process. Crucially, it is seeking to harvest the learning from this project to inform future policy. An additional €500,000 was provided to my department in Budget 2019 to support this vital initiative, bringing total expenditure for the pilot to approximately €2 million. Representatives from the traveller community have been involved at all stages of the development of the project. Accommodation for travellers is provided across a wide range of options, including standard local authority housing, private housing assisted by local authority or voluntary bodies, and private rented accommodation, as well as traveller-specific accommodation. Issues in the delivery of traveller accommodation have been widely acknowledged by government, by local authorities, by the EU and the UN, and indeed by traveller representatives, and especially by traveller representatives themselves. In line with the commitment in Rebuilding Ireland and reflecting the disappointing level of overall funding drawn down in recent years, the Housing Agency in 2017 commissioned a review of funding for traveller-specific accommodation. Following consideration of that report, an independent expert group was established to review the effectiveness, implementation and operation of relevant legislation and to put forward proposals to improve delivery of traveller accommodation nationally. The expert group submitted its report in July 2019. The completion of this review and the delivery of this report is a significant step in identifying the best ways to address these challenges. The Department of Housing is currently considering the report and recommendations of the expert group, with a view to implementing appropriate actions and policies that will improve the delivery of traveller accommodation nationally. The priority is to ensure that full use is made of the increasing level of funding available for investment in traveller accommodation. The Department of Employment Affairs and Social Protection is committed to traveller and Roma employment-related actions as set out in the National Travel and Roma Inclusion Strategy. All clients of the Public Employment Service who are in receipt of job seeker payments, including those from the traveller community, have access to the full range of activation measures and employment supports. Further, those who are not currently in receipt of a job seeker's payment and those considering changing jobs can, on a voluntary or walk-in basis, also avail of employment support services via the support of a dedicated case officer. To further promote access to the Public Employment Service to the traveller and Roma communities, targeted videos were produced in collaboration with traveller and Roma representative groups to be shared on the Public Employment Service website via social media and by the traveller and Roma representative groups. Under its Community Employment Programme, the Department of Employment Affairs and Social Protection funds community development projects. A wide range of projects are supported, including some whose specific objective is to support the progression of travellers. The community employment entry criteria for traveller and Roma candidates are more flexible than the general population eligibility criteria. In Budget 2020, a provision of €2.5 million has been committed to develop target pre-employment support programmes for those most distant from the labour market. traveller and Roma are one of the 5 named disadvantaged groups for prioritisation. A National Travel and Roma Inclusion Strategy subgroup on employment for travellers and Roma was also established in 2018. The members of the subgroup are representatives from government departments and agencies, civil society and traveller groups. A member from a traveller representative group was nominated as chair. The subgroup will support travellers to access training and employment. There has also been an increased focus on promoting and celebrating traveller culture. The Department of Justice and Equality works to support, strengthen and expand Traveller and Roma Pride Week and to increase national awareness of the event. 15 organisations received funding for individual projects or events to mark Traveller Pride Week 2018. In addition, funding was provided for a centrally organised Traveller Pride Awards and Traveller Pride Concert in 2019, which offers an important showcase for traveller culture. The Department of Justice and Equality also directly funds traveller organisations to undertake projects to promote and celebrate traveller culture. The Department of Justice and Equality also funded a major event on the 15th of March 2018 to celebrate the first anniversary of the recognition of travellers as an ethnic minority. The celebratory event, held at the historic Royal Hospital Kilmainham in Dublin, was open to travellers and non-travellers and drew on essential elements of travellers' rich cultural heritage, including music, craft traditions and language. The National Museum of Ireland hosted Traveller's Journey, an exhibition exploring the culture, tradition and crafts of the traveller community at its Country Life Museum in Castlebar, County Mayo, from July 2018 until May 2019. This exhibition provided an opportunity to raise awareness among the general public of the richness of traveller culture, with accompanying events in schools in the region. The traveller craft of tinsmithing has also been added to the Ireland's National Inventory of Intangible Cultural Heritage, the purpose of which is to acknowledge, safeguard and promote Ireland's living culture through official state recognition. In the reporting period, major reforms have been undertaken in An Garda Síochána, that's Ireland's police service. These reforms have included the strengthening of the Gardaí's capacity to respond to the needs of minorities. In October 2019, just 2 months ago, I launched the Garda Síochána Diversity and Integration Strategy, which runs from 2019 to 2021, and jointly with the Commissioner of the Gardaí, Mr. Drew Harris. The strategy's themes are focused on protecting the community, developing robust data systems, upskilling the police force, to understand the needs of diverse communities and to respond to crimes perpetrated against them. The strategy includes a definition of hate crime in line with international best practice, aimed at enhancing positive engagement with persons from minority groups and diverse backgrounds. The Garda National Diversity and Integration Unit is monitoring and reporting and recording of all forms of hate crime on Pulse, that's the Garda recording system. An Garda Síochána has recently decided that, in order to encourage candidates from minority communities, its policy on its uniform is being updated to take account of religious and ethnic requirements subject to operational and health and safety obligations. For example, An Garda Síochána is allowing the wearing of the turban for members of the Sikh community and the hijab for members of the Muslim community. Over the reporting period, funding opportunities have increased for initiatives involving travellers, Roma and other ethnic minorities. Since 2017, €11 million has been made available by the Department of Justice and Equality for initiatives under the Migrant Integration Strategy. Travellers and migrants are designated target communities for the CICAP programme, which is the primary national programme to support action by community groups and NGOs. I believe strongly in supporting the capacity of the community to promote integration. To this end, I launched the Communities Integration Fund in 2017, which supports local initiatives by migrant and non-migrant groups to promote integration. 124 organisations received funding from this initiative this year. Government-wide funding support for integration and inclusion is also being promoted through Ireland's new Equality Budgeting Initiative, which is currently being piloted by a number of government departments. This approach will in time require all government departments and agencies to screen spending and policy programmes for their equality impact and to monitor the equality impacts of what they do. This will allow us to effectively mobilise resources in pursuit of our equality and inclusion objectives across all public policy areas. Ireland has also looked outwards with regards to its international obligations towards those fleeing conflict and persecution. Ireland responded to the humanitarian crisis resulting from the conflict in Syria by establishing an Irish Refugee Protection Programme in 2015, which committed to bringing 4,000 people to Ireland. The programme substantially increased the number of refugees resettled in Ireland. Since 2015, we have worked with the UNHCR to resettle Syrian refugees from the refugee centres in Jordan and Lebanon. We have relocated asylum seekers from Syria who are temporarily living in camps in Greece. We have developed family reunification initiatives to enable families and communities to bring to Ireland relatives living in conflict. I have striven to develop new mechanisms which draw on the goodwill of the Irish public while seeking to ensure the best integration outcomes for the refugees. Ladies and gentlemen, I was really inspired by the community sponsorship model developed in Canada, whereby local communities sponsor refugee families to settle in their areas. I saw it firsthand when I visited similar projects in the UK, how the integration outcomes could be improved for refugees when the communities and neighbours with whom they were to be resettled took an active part in the resettlement process. Following a successful pilot programme, the Refugee Community Sponsorship Ireland was formally launched on the 15th of November just last month. It's a really, really exciting programme. Everybody involved in it benefits from it. And, you know, the host community who are involved in it tell me they get great satisfaction from helping people from conflict when they settle in their areas. And I could talk about it, Mr. Chairman, for an hour. It's such a positive development. The private community sponsorship refugee programme. Really exciting. So I'm looking forward to that growing across the country in the next months and years. Already we have quite a number of communities have contacted us expressing a lot of interest in actually getting involved in it, whereby the family come directly from a camp in Lebanon quite often. They come to Ireland and they go straight to live in their community. And they're integrated and wrapped and supported by the community, which wrap themselves around them in a fantastic way. Really powerful stuff. I want to acknowledge that there are areas, of course, of which the committee will be critical. Many of the shadow reports submitted to the committee are critical of what we call the direct provision system, which is our whole of government mechanism for providing support to asylum seekers who seek international protection in Ireland. Once a claim for international protection is made, a legal process begins. While that process is underway, we offer a range of state services to applicants who are without means, and that includes accommodation, food, health services, utilities, educational provision for children. In general, these services are offered in centres, which allows for the swift provision of services to applicants. Applicants are given access to mainstream health services. Children have access to mainstream education provision. I want to make clear that there is no obligation to enter or remain in direct provision centres, and there is no restriction on an applicant's freedom of movement throughout the state. Since the introduction of direct provision in 1999, over 65,000 people have been accommodated in the system. Before the system was introduced, asylum seekers experienced homelessness and vulnerability, including to human traffickers. While many people have called for the abolition of direct provision, I am not aware of anyone who has proposed a workable alternative for service provision. Any credible alternative put forward to replace the system must be capable of providing the wraparound services that applicants need on arrival. They are seeking protection for them is a strange country where they may not know the language, the customs or the law. And the system we have provides that kind of wraparound support for the initial period. The government and its predecessor have focused systematically on addressing any flaws in the system to ensure that we provide the best possible services to applicants in the best possible way. Last year, our reception system was placed on a statutory footing when Ireland opted into the EU recast Reception Conditions Directive. This directive brings with it a series of standards and rights for applicants, which we are now legally obliged to deliver. I am pleased that in Ireland we can now be confident that our services are on a par with other EU countries. Opting into the directive built on a very concerted effort to tackle many of the shortcomings in direct provision through a working group chaired by Mr Justice Brian McMahon, on which a number of NGOs participated. The report of that group provided the blueprint for the reforms undertaken since 2015. Significant improvements have been introduced into the system since 2015, such as the rollout of independent living, where applicants can cook for themselves, and private living spaces for families. Residents now also have access to the services of the Ombudsman and the Ombudsman for Children. In line with the EU directive, access to the labour market is provided for applicants who are waiting 9 months or more on a first instance decision on their protection application. This means that applicants can become economically independent, giving them more options regarding their accommodation and living arrangements. To date, more than 3,400 labour market access permissions have been granted to eligible applicants, and further applications are being approved every day. The International Protection Act 2015 introduced a single application procedure for the first time. This involved all elements of a person's protection claim, refugee status, subsidiary protection and permission to remain being considered together rather than sequentially as before. The aim of this single procedure is to help to reduce waiting time significantly and to ensure that we are identifying at the earliest stage possible those who need our protection and those who can safely return to their home country. We will soon begin to see the benefits of the new system with a reduction in processing times. The benefits of the streamlined procedure were delayed because of the need to process a series of legacy cases that had begun under the old system. We've also had to manage a 60% increase in applications this year, 60% increase. As part of our continued commitment to improving the lives of asylum seekers in the state, national standards for accommodation centres were published earlier this year. These standards were developed in cooperation with NGOs. We've also established 2 groups to review the direct vision system and to continue to improve conditions. An interdepartmental group chaired by my department has been established to ensure that all departments are proactively delivering on their responsibilities. The group is reviewing the management of applicants for international protection and considering the short to medium term options which could be implemented to improve the system. The second group is a consultative group chaired by Dr. Catherine Day, the former Secretary General of the European Commission. This group, which is currently being established, is looking at longer-term solutions and identifying good practice in other European countries in providing for the needs of applicants for international protection. Another area of which further action is needed is that of strengthening the legislative mechanism to tackle hate speech and hate crime. The Department of Justice and Equality is working to develop and improve Ireland's legislation on hate speech and hate crime as a priority. The Department opened a public consultation on incitement to hatred in October last. Workshops are being conducted across Ireland to ensure that communities living with the impact of hate speech have the opportunity to participate. The first of these took place on the 26th of November. Research is also being finalised in international best practice on hate crime legislation, and this is due to be published shortly. Once that is complete, proposals will be brought forward for new hate crime legislation and will be published in spring 2020. Ireland will revisit this reservation on Article 4 after that has passed. Mr. Chairman, Ireland is making sustained efforts to improve the protections available to its minorities, to tackle obstacles where they arise and to strengthen the capacity of its systems to respond to their needs. While the Committee will undoubtedly identify areas in which further action needs to be taken, I hope you acknowledge the commitment that has been demonstrated over the years since 2011 to improve our legislation, policy and systems. And I look forward to the views and the comments of members of your committee, Mr. Chairman, because we are very keen to learn and to continue to improve. Thank you very much indeed.